Here we are at the Frick. This is Gainsborough, the Fashion of Portraiture. It's the very first exhibition on Gainsborough at the Frick, and the very first exhibition on Gainsborough's portraiture ever in New York City. Thomas Gainsborough was a leading artist of 18th century Britain. He was born out in the countryside in Suffolk, and eventually he made his way up to being the most sought-after society portraitist of his day. Portraiture in this time was the most popular form of painting. Everyone who could have a portrait of themselves did. That meant that artists offered various levels of size, materials, quality, and thus price points. People even made a social activity out of visiting artists at their painting studio. So they would go around to see who was painting whom and how. When Gainsborough moves from the countryside around where he grew up over to this spa town of Bath, which is this really fashionable spa town where everybody goes to cure their ailments, this is where his career really takes off, and this is where the clientele that he's painting for starts to be much higher on the social ranks. And he paints Lady Howe, now known as Countess Howe, in the highest details and accessories and clothing of fashion at the time. And in fact, this is one of the earliest full-length portraits that Gainsborough paints of a woman. And one of the great activities in Bath, of course, is the promenade. It's walking around, being seen, and seeing other people and what they're wearing. So fashion was understood a little bit differently in the 18th century than it might be today. So today it might refer to what we wear, cover of Vogue, etc. In the 18th century, fashion had a few different meanings, specifically having to do with social class. So a person of fashion was defined as somebody who was below the nobility but above the vulgar. And so there are these meanings that are wrapped up in the word fashion that I think are lost to us today but are completely enmeshed in the world that Gainsborough was painting. One of the reunions that I'm most happy to see happen in this exhibition was bringing together Ignatius Sancho and the Duchess of Montagu. These are two paintings that may have been made around the same time for two people who knew each other very well. One, of course, was a noble, and one was a servant who worked for her family. But in his spare time, Ignatius Sancho was a composer, a musician, a writer, an abolitionist. And interestingly, Gainsborough chooses this part of his identity. He's not wearing the livery or the uniform that he would be wearing as a servant to the Duke and Duchess of Montagu. He's dressed as a gentleman in the gentleman's pose, which was specifically putting a hand resting in the waistcoat. And this was one of Gainsborough's best friends, Carl Friedrich Goble, who is a German composer and musician. What Gainsborough is not giving you any hint of course, is that Goble is struggling financially, but he's presenting him in absolute refinement. And the care with every single one of these details, even the seals that are hanging from his fob, even the piece of paper that he's writing on, you can read some of the notes, and even the musical notation allegro, so cheerful and happy. But Goble is pictured with his little Pomeranian sleeping under his desk as he's composing music. And Gainsborough actually made an independent portrait of Goble's Pomeranian and her pup. Pet portraiture was not particularly lucrative or fashionable, but Gainsborough appears to have made this pet portrait in exchange for music lessons from his friend Goble. For a lot, especially in this country, 18th century British painting can seem like dusty old pictures of dusty rich people, but really each one of the pictures, especially in this exhibition that we've brought together, there are deep, complex, rich human stories interwoven that tell a whole world of a society that lived really in the paintings that Gainsborough painted.